guys, welcome to my art channel. Thanks for stopping by to make some art with me. For more free art lessons, you could press the button below and subscribe right there on that red button. And I will see you really soon. Now let's get to making some art. Bye-bye. Hi guys, welcome. Today we are going to work on some felt monster dolls. The materials you're going to need are a few pieces of felt. Usually felt comes in 9 by 12 sheets. And you'll need some yarn, whatever yarn you have. If you have sequins or glitter or buttons, you could use that. Some liquid school glue, good scissors for fabric, a piece of printer paper or drawing paper, and something to stuff your monster with. If you don't have craft stuffing, I'll show you how you can use some paper towel or tissues or scrap paper. So the first thing we need to do is think about what kind of monster we want to create. When we're working with our fabric, depending on how much felt you have, you're going to have to make a pattern for the size of the monster. I'm going to create a pattern for my monster on just this piece of printer paper. And you can just draw out the outside shape that you want your monster to be. So I'm going to make my monster with kind of wavy lines, like a big blob. And your monster can be any shape. He can have, or she can have points or waves, or be a triangle or a circle. I'm going to use this shape for my monster. So the next thing that I have to do is, this is going to be my pattern. I'm going to have to cut my monster out of my felt. So to do that, I first have to make sure that my pattern is going to fit on the amount of felt that I have, because my sheet is a little small. I will make it fit. Okay, I'm actually going to do a little trick here. I just have 3 sheets of felt, so I'm going to use a green and a red to make my monster, and I'll use the scraps to decorate him or her. And if you put your felt together, one on top of the other, and just smooth it, it'll stick together nicely, making it easier to cut. And then we're going to take the pattern that you drew and we're going to put it on top. If you have some craft glue stick, you can just put a little bit, just a tiny bit, on the back of your pattern and then stick that to the top of your felt. And that'll help keep the pattern from moving as you're cutting. And this glue, you're just going to put a little bit on because you want to be able to pull the pattern, the paper off after you're done cutting and not have any paper left over stuck to your felt. So I'm just going to cut around my pattern. Now my felt is a little bit short, so I'm going to have to cheat a little bit because I could feel I ran out of felt on the back, but I'm going to fix that in a minute. Okay, so I cut around my pattern, and then I'm just going to fix my back here. Make sure I like the shape that I created. And cut off any little pieces that are jagged and just try and smooth out my cuts a little bit, like that. And then I could take this paper off, and I don't need that anymore. And really, I didn't use that much glue, so you can't see any of it. Now let me just clean off this stuff. Oh, I'm going to hold on to this because I'm going to need it. And now I'm ready to create my actual monster. So first I'm going to separate this because I'm going to be gluing onto whichever is going to be the front of my monster. And I don't want the glue to seep down and stick to the second piece. So I'm going to make the monster green and his back is going to be red. So the next thing I'm going to do is I have to decide how I want to decorate him. He's got this really oddly shaped body. What kind of eyes do I want to give him? So I'm going to start with the eyes, and I think he's a monster, so maybe he just has one big eye. And you could create your eyes any way you want. He could have 3 eyes, he could have 1,000,000 eyes, one big eye. I'm going to make one big eye, and I'm drawing this on my white. I happen to have white felt, so you can see it. Like that. I'm drawing the shape of the eye, and I'm going to cut that out. And there's other ways you can make eyes, and I'm going to show you that also. And the eye doesn't have to be white either. It could be any color. So I cut out my shape here. That's going to go there. But if you wanted to, you can make eyes. You can have like a bunch of eyes. That's another way of doing it. So I'll cut out both and let's see which we like better. So this time I'm cutting out circle eyes to see maybe I want him to have 3 eyes instead of one big eye. So just take some of your felt, some of the little smaller pieces, and just experiment. See what you like the best. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. See, this is what he would be with 1 eye, or I could do him with 3 eyes. Like that. I think I'm going to stick with the one big eye, and I'll put this away, but I'm going to hold on to the scraps. And I'm going to place my eye. I'm going to place my eye up here. So I'm going to use the liquid glue. And I prefer using, when I'm working with fabric, to use the liquid glue because it sticks better than the glue stick would with fabric. There we go. And I'm just going to stick his eyeball right on where I decided to put it, which is going to be up here. Like that. So I have his eye and I need the pupil, the round part. And there's a few ways I could do that. I could cut the pupil out of a piece of fabric or felt into a circle. And I have red or green that I could use to do that. So let's see how that looks. I can make his eye just like that. So, or I could use yarn. And I'm actually going to show you how to use yarn to make his eye, the pupil of his eye, the colored part. So give me a moment to change my camera lens so you can see up close how I'm going to make his eyeball. To make his eyeball out of yarn, you need a small piece of yarn. And what you're going to do is start by putting a dot of glue right where you want to start the eyeball. And just put your yarn right in there. Now, a trick that I've learned when working with yarn and glue is to use the tip of a pencil. For some reason, I guess because it's much narrower than my fingers, it's easier to push the yarn into the glue. And we're just going to give this a moment to dry so I can continue spiraling. I'm going to spiral the yarn. But if I let this part dry, it makes it a lot easier. So let's just give that a moment. Once this middle piece is dry, I'm going to pick up this part of the yarn. And actually mine isn't really dry. I didn't let it sit for long enough, but It's okay. So I'm going to draw with my glue the circle that I want. For my eye. Okay, so I drew with my glue. Whoops. So I'm going to hold this piece down here in the middle, that piece of yarn, and I'm going to wrap my yarn around itself like this. And I'm going to push it down as I'm wrapping it around. I'm just going to push it down into the glue. Like that. I'm kind of making a snail shell. And it's a little tricky, especially if the glue gets on your fingers and everything starts to stick. So I'm going to just clean off my fingers, and I'm going to continue and just make sure you have plenty of glue to make that circle. See that? And the pencil point is really helping me press it down, because if I press it down with my fingers, then my fingers are going to keep getting sticky with the glue. I just want to check. I think I need a little bit more glue to continue the eye. So I'm going to put some more glue around. And continue on my spiral or my snail shell like this. Until I finish my piece of yarn. I need more glue. And I'm just going to finish putting it right there, like so. So that looks super funky. I like that. And I'm just going to roll it very gently with my pencil to kind of squish that yarn into that glue that's on the felt. And then we let it dry. So now I have my eyeball, and I think I should give him an eyebrow, and I do happen to have some green yarn, so I'm going to just take a piece of green yarn and give my monster a green eyebrow like that. Like, looks like he's thinking, or she's thinking. Just like so. So now I have my eye and my eyebrow. I could use a little bit of a nose. And I could do the nose either with some felt, or I could do it with yarn. If you have a button, you could do a button nose. I think I'm going to give him a funny red nose, and maybe I'll actually use the circle that I originally was going to use for the eye. And I'm going to make the nose into more of an oval shape, like that. Maybe we'll put it this way. And I'm going to glue my nose on. And now my monster needs a mouth. So I'm going to create a mouth with lips. And to do that, I'm going to draw on my fabric first. Because I find it easier sometimes to draw the shapes and then cut it. So that's kind of a heart shape that's flat on the bottom. And I could even make a smile in there. And then I can cut that mouth out. glue it right on there like that. Just gonna fix that little piece. Put some glue on the bottom. Now my monster has a cute little face, and I could take my marker and I could outline the nose if I wanted to. And I'm just going to let that dry a minute before I continue to work on it because I don't want anything to fall off. And with the liquid glue, it tends to take a little bit longer to dry than the glue stick. So I'm going to change my camera lens and be right back. So I have here my monster front, and there's still a few things that I want to give my monster. I want to give my monster some arms and some feet. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cut them out, and I'm actually going to glue them to the inside of the back piece. So I'm going to take my green and I'm just going to make some arms. I'm going to draw them first. Like so. And I'm going to cut them out. So you can make your arms and hands any way you want, again, just like we did with the eyes. Remember, it's a monster. So your monster might have very strange hands. My monster only has 2 fingers. Your monster might have a lot of fingers or no fingers or just points. Okay, I have to make sure that I am putting my hands on the correct inside piece. So I'm just going to double check and make sure that this matches up, because when I glue it closed, I won't be able to change it. So this is going to be the inside of the back. And then I have to decide where and how I want my hands. And I am going to glue them right in here. Pat it down a little bit. And I could double check to make sure I like it and give me an idea of what it's going to look like. So that works. I'm going to just pull this off because I want to also do my legs. And I think I'm going to do my legs out of the white. And I'm going to glue my legs in the same side I glued my hands in. And now I'm going to add some shoes. So I think I'm going to give my monster some red shoes. Maybe I'll give him kind of big shoes. And again, your monster can have shoes or no shoes, however you want to do the legs. So I'm going to just glue that on there. And then I'm going to put this aside to dry a little bit. And I'm going to come back to the front of my monster. And I have to think about hair. So I think I'm going to use this crazy color yarn that I happen to have. And I'm just going to take out like maybe 2 arms length. Let's start with that. 1 and 2. And I actually want to have lots of short hair, so I'm going to fold this a couple of times. So I folded it once, I'm going to fold it again, and each time I'll decide if that's the length I want. Maybe I want it a little shorter. No, I think that, yeah, I'll do it a little shorter. So when I get it to the length that I want, I'm going to cut through those little loops on the top and very carefully on the bottom. And then the hair is going to be glued again on the inside of the back. And I'm going to give my guy like a little mohawk. So he's going to have a rainbow mohawk right in the middle of his head. And I'm going to take this hair, if I can find my pencil, I could press down all that yarn and spread it out into the glue with the pencil so my fingers don't get all sticky. Just want to make sure every piece has enough glue on it. I'm just going to roll it in there. Now my pencil's going to be sticky. And, oh, that's going to be cute. So I'm going to let that dry. So now I basically have the opportunity to decorate the front. My monster has hair, arms and legs. Now he or she, I guess he needs some decoration. I only have some yarn and some sequins to decorate with. So whatever you have to decorate with is great. So I think maybe, oh, and I do have some extra fabric. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my monster a bow tie. To make a bow tie, I'm going to take my fabric and fold it in half. And on the folded part, I'm going to draw a triangle. Okay. So this is the top where the fold is, and this is the opening on the bottom. And I drew my triangle connected to that top because I'm not going to cut in here. That's going to connect my bow tie. And I'm going to just cut that triangle out. And it's going to give me this cute little bow tie that I am going to glue onto the front of my monster here. And I'm just going to glue it in the middle because I don't mind that it will be a little flappy on the sides. That's fine. It doesn't have to be glued on completely. It can come up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my sequins and just kind of put them on. I think I'm just going to do it randomly. I'm just going to pop on some glue. And I'm going to give him a fun sequin bow tie. He's a really stylish kind of monster. So I'll throw on some of my sequins. Whoops, I almost knocked them over. And then my excess sequins, I'm just going to dump onto here for now. And that looks pretty snazzy. And any extra sequins, I'm going to pop on this paper. And you could do the same thing with glitter too. Fold the paper and put it right back into its container. So you don't waste sequins or glitter, or whatever you're using. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is you really should wait and make sure things are dry or semi-dry. We are going to glue our monster together, but we have to leave a space to stuff him. And after we glue him together, we're definitely going to have to wait till he dries before we stuff him. Otherwise, he'll just pull apart. So to do that, we're going to take our glue, and I think I'm going to leave the head open for stuffing. And you have to make sure that you'll be able to fit your hands in whatever space you leave open. So I'm going to measure my hands and I'm going to put the glues around that, and I'm going to go all the way around the shape. And I'm going to use plenty, and I just want to make sure that I have enough space there. I'm going to use plenty of glue. I left an opening by the hair that my hand can fit into. And lots of glue. And then I'm going to take the front of my monster and very carefully I'm going to place him on the back because I want it to match up, so that's why I have to do it slowly. And notice how I'm holding it up and just pressing down a little piece at a time because I want to make sure that the front and the back match up. So I know here it matches up, and you might see some glue coming through the front felt or fabric. That's fine. This glue will dry clear. And you want to just press the fabric all the way around so the glue shows through is fine. Make sure that it's all going to stick together. I'm just going to pick them up because I have a lot of glue stuck on my table. You should work on a piece of paper or something to protect the table. The glue will come off, but it's making it awfully sticky. So this is the hardest part. We really now have to wait to let this dry. If we don't let it dry, we're going to pull it apart as we move it around. So I'm just going to do this to make sure that that doesn't close on it. And I'm going to come back in about 20 minutes or so. This should be dry enough to stuff our monster. So hopefully your glue is pretty dry right now, and you have a good size opening on top to put in your stuffing. What I'm going to use for stuffing is paper towels because that's all I have. If you have craft stuffing, great. You can use tissues, scrap fabric, scrap paper, but I'm going to use some paper towel because that's all I have. I'm ripping it into little strips, and I'm just going to crunch it up into little balls like this, and I'm going to start by pushing it down carefully because I don't want to open, if my glue's still a little wet, open any of the spaces. And I'm going to push it in and fill up my little monster's body here. Now if your glue is still wet, I feel some areas are still a little wet here, just be careful. You might have to wait a little longer, or sometimes you could just repair anything that opens up. And we're just going to keep crumpling it, and no matter what you're using, if you're using paper or fabric, don't put in a whole big ball of it. Make it into smaller balls. This will fill out the monster's body better. And if you have any like little nooks and crannies like I do, because I made a wavy body, this will be helpful. And if there's certain areas that you want more stuffing, like I'm going to try and make his belly a little bit bigger, so I'm going to add more stuffing in that area. Keep filling them out, and when you're pushing the stuffing in, just be really careful because you don't want to rip open the seams that you've glued. And it looks like I could use a little bit more stuffing, so I'm going to go through my scrap bin over here and see what I have. I'm going to use, I still have a lot of scraps from our projects. These are perfect to go in here. And we'll fill them up nicely. There we go. So I'm filling this little guy up. So what else I have in my scrap bin? Perfect. Okay, so as I get kind of filled up, my opening is a little bit wide. And sometimes that happens as I have a bigger hand and my opening opened up here. So I'm going to have to re-glue that and let it dry. But I think I have enough stuffing for him. So I'm going to go around and glue any areas that I missed before. And I'm going to glue close that hole that I made to put my hand in for the stuffing. And then we have to let the glue dry again. So you need another 20 minutes or so. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Just a little trick that I found helps keep the sides closed while the glue is drying is to put some paper clips on any areas that keep opening, because I noticed that sometimes a little area, especially after I stuffed it, some areas opened up and it was hard to keep them closed. So I just popped on some of these paper clips, and I can pull them off now because my monster is dry. And we could take a look and see how he came out. He's pretty fun. And he's kind of, he's got nice fluff in there, and that fluff is all recycled stuff. So here you go. Here's our little felt plushy monster. I hope you enjoyed making this, and I will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.